This episode contains stories of suicide and racism, and historic terms.
July the 31st, 1975. Crashpad offered SW1 up to midnight. This is not operational till caller confirms date, ringing back within a month when his flatmate moves out.
This is a logbook entry from Switchboard from 1978, and Phil was the volunteer who took the call from Paul. Paul was originally from Leicester and phoned this evening to say he was just been released from hospital after being admitted for trying to commit suicide. He says he is destitute. I have given him 3 hostels and told him to contact Social Security tomorrow. Paul is 29, who had come to London because he was ridiculed. He certainly doesn't sound camp.
It just makes me feel so emotional hearing that. Not only is he feeling like he can't continue anymore, he doesn't have somewhere to fall back on, and at least Switchboard was there to talk to him. At least he had someone to speak to. You're listening to The Logbooks, stories from Britain's LGBTQ+ history and conversations about being queer today.
In partnership with Switchboard, the LGBT+ helpline. I'm Adam Smith.
I'm Tash Walker. Switchboard is a helpline for anyone who wants to talk about gender identity or sexuality, whose volunteers began answering the phones back in 1974. They used to write down a record of the calls they had taken in what were known as the logbooks, which date back to its very first day.
And we have been looking into them to try to find the stories that give us a sense of what it was like to be LGBTQ+ from 1974 onwards. This is episode 1, Crashpad Needed.
And we're going to be talking about the logbook entries that mention home. So that's Runaways, rough sleepers, communes, flatshares, crashpads.
These stories are so common in the logbooks, as you heard at the top.
When Switchboard began in the 1970s, not to mention before then and also since, so many people have been in search of somewhere they feel at home.
And Sally was one of them. Here she is, with our first story of this episode.
I grew up in the north of England, between Yorkshire and Derbyshire, often in small villages and towns, and finally settled in quite a large town in the north called Chesterfield. Hi, I'm Sally, I'm 53, I'm a parent and a lesbian and a vegetarian. In the 70s, at that time, growing up as a young lesbian, there really wasn't anything on offer. I didn't think I was unique, but I wasn't sure how many people there were that were like me. And I certainly didn't know anybody at that age that was out, either my age or older. And in the press, you never saw any positive role models at all. If there was anything, it would be a chap, and it would be usually in a comedy or something, somebody like Larry Grayson. And I didn't relate to any of the images. We moved around a lot because my mum had mental health problems, and we'd be fine for a few weeks, sometimes a few months, and then she'd get very stressed and she would give the keys in to the local authority, and then we'd be put in care for a bit, and then we'd return home again, and the same thing would happen again and again. I left home at 16. I'd had enough because my mum was physically and emotionally abusive, and I just had enough at that point. So I packed a carrier bag and I went to social services. My mum said to social services that she thought I was gay, and they weren't very interested in that. They just said, look, it's of no concern to us whether you are or not, which in a sense, was it was a good response at the time, but it would be much better if they could have said, if you are, here's services that are available to you. Do you want to talk to anybody about it? So it was acknowledging it, but not really helping me with it.
People often have to make a decision as to whether they stay at home and hide or leave, just as Tim and Elaine told us.
In the late 70s, many LGBT people still lived in fear and were terrified of what might happen if they came out. So I think what's really interesting is people came out later. People stayed at home. People hid their identities.
I was born in 1945, just as the war ended. In fact, I was born on BE Day, so I can't lie about my age. Hello everybody, my name is Elaine and I was born in Leytonstone, and when I got married I moved to Leytonstone, another part. I lived in an extended community with my sister in the house next door and her 3 children. On the other side my friend Jean lived with her daughter, so it was a very community focused time. Anything outside of my own world was quite a shock really, and having this sudden realisation that I was in the wrong life was really scary. I was married, I had a son of 10. I had what my brother described as a hothouse affair with another woman in 1981, and from that time I realised the life that I wanted to have was a different life from the life I had currently.
And that's why some people decide to leave home or run away from home.
We've got an entry here from the 11th of June, 1982, and David was the volunteer that took the notes. And he's written, I had a call from a 19-year-old in Ashford who has been thrown out of home this evening by his parents, who had just discovered. We had a long chat, but he will probably phone back tomorrow for long-term advice. Luckily, he seemed reasonably together about his situation and was reconciled to spending the night in his Mini. Imagine taking a call like that and not having anywhere to direct someone to other than their Mini, which, I mean, it's lucky that he has a car as well. You know, this is the hidden homelessness. This is, you know, no outreach worker is going to find you if you're sleeping in the back of your car, but obviously you do feel much safer than going on, like, sleeping rough or, like I say, going into mainstream services. You know, that can be pretty scary if you think you might be met with people who have the same views as your parents or your neighbours or, you know, whatever's thrown you out of home in the first place.
My name's Julian House. I'm 63 years old this year. Being gay in 1971, 72, when I started to come out, I ran away from home. Similar to thousands upon thousands of young people who ran away from home because they were either not accepted or couldn't come out at home when it was all discovered, this terrible thing of them loving other boys or loving other girls. You know, so it was a lot of people moving to the big city and being lonely and isolated and having no support mechanisms at all. I was involved in a big thing at school in that I invited the Gay Liberation Front to address my school debating society at the age of 16. And we had other external speakers from, like, CND, I think. But when it was heard that the Gay Liberation Front were going to come to us in 1971 or 72, headmaster said, no, it's not allowed, you've got to refuse. So we, the sixth form, being a bolshy lot, turned around and said, no, we're not going to. I was expelled from school for being a corrupting influence upon the younger pupils. So I thought, oh, sod it all anyway. In the main, I had a very supportive mother who sort of knew that I was gay from quite an early age, didn't quite approve. I thought it was a phase that I might grow out of and all the rest of it, but never really stopped me. So it wasn't as though I was thrown out, I walked out.
And I had been involved with the early GLF and the GLF Information Service and various things, and been on marches already, and been to the early GLF meetings as a precocious little brat of 16 or so. So I decided to move into a commune in Notting Hill Gate, and estranged myself from my parents for nearly a year. They eventually came and visited me in this commune. My mother did. So, I ran away from home, went off to join the circus.
August 27th, 1975. A woman called Mrs. Lord phoned, very worried about her possibly gay son, who is down in London. If he phones in to Gay Switchboard, can we try and ensure that he phones her to reassure her that he is okay? His name is Mark.
Running away on one level, but so many people who came out for the first time who thought, no, I'm not going to go to the university, for example, because this is not just a working class phenomena. It's multi-layered, and it affects, all strata of society. Thinking, I'm going to London that way, I can come out.
I wanted to live somewhere where I wasn't going to feel like I was the only person, where there would be groups and clubs and pubs and social things to do. And obviously, eventually, to, maybe meet somebody that I would have a relationship with. And I didn't feel there was much chance of that in Chesterfield. So I decided I was going to be leaving and probably end up in either London or a large American city.
The big cities hoover many of us up. It's the same old story.
But in the 70s, and influenced by the feminist movement, many women were exploring new ways of living.
It was my 20th birthday. I'd just dumped a boyfriend, and I was pretty fed up with the whole trying to be straight thing. I'm Suzanne Chomsky. I'm 61 years old, and I would describe myself as a lesbian. It suddenly occurred to me that actually I didn't have to have a boyfriend if I didn't want one, whereas before it felt like it was kind of compulsory socially, you had to be attached to a man. And I thought, actually, no. And that's the first time I realised it, and then I cut off all my hair. And then I looked in a Coventry bulletin and found there was a women's group meeting that night. So I thought, OK, I'm going to that. One of the girls, Pat, said to me, "Are you a lesbian?" And I said, "Yes, I am. Are you?" And she said, "Yes, we all are." And I said, "Oh, I did wonder." So that was the night I came out. Then I had a whole group of friends. They lived in a separatist house in Coventry, just a bunch of women, and I went and lived with them. A separatist house was a house where there were no men, and they did everything they could to avoid contact with men. It was a kind of a political movement at the time of women who wanted to kind of get away from a male-dominated world and kind of like find out who they really were just by themselves and as lesbians and as women. And we did a lot of political work and political thinking. If you were to just come into the separatist household, say, just walk in the door, you might find a bunch of women cooking like lentil soup because we were pretty much vegetarian. We also used to have consciousness-raising sessions where we all used to tell the truth and people would get upset. There would be a lot of crying and maybe arguments, but we'd get through it and come out the other side of it. And actually, it was a very good process. It was a healing process. And also it made us trust each other and feel more able to tell the truth about how we were feeling about things and what was happening, even talking about sexual fantasies and things like that. So it kind of opened up and it felt liberating, actually, but it wasn't always easy.
I guess not everyone can find or build a home like Suzanne did.
That's right, and for people who actually needed more help, Switchboard created an accommodation service.
Oh, right.
So it had files and folders all stacked on top of the volunteers in the small phone room, just like Tony, who remembers exactly what the old office was like.
I'm Tony Whitehead. I am 65 years old. I never thought I'd reach 65. If you came to Switchboard in 1978, door next door to the bookshop, you open the door and it's steep steps right in front of you. And I think people did attempt to brighten it up and repaint from time to time. But my memory is of it being a bit tatty, well used. And there was 2 or 3 rooms upstairs. The main room with the telephones, absolutely packed with files. During the day particularly, it would be busy. I mean, you could get 3 people on the phones. I'm not sure how many phones there were lined up, 3 or 4, and it could be packed, and there'd be people, each one talking on the phone, and then files being down, and somebody might drop something.
This is a logbook reading from September the 26th, 1975. Carl and his mate would be happy to help any lonely person who comes to London by offering temporary accommodation. They are a long-standing affair. Their interests are boating, travelling, etc. They have a large house. He sounds very pleasant. They sound really nice. Travelling, boating, big house, and they sound pleasant. I'd like to meet these people. And my first response is, this is kosher. It's above board, it's welcoming, I'm interested, and I think I'm inclined to trust them. My name's Jonathan Izard, I'm 64 years old, and in 1978 I just moved to London and I was looking for somewhere to live. I wasn't just looking for anywhere to live, I wanted somewhere that I would be comfortable, and gay flatshare was the term. So I would go to a phone box with my money and put in, 10p maybe at that time, make the call to Switchboard and say, I'm looking for a gay flatshare, what have you got? Has anything new come in since I last called? Because I might have called 2 or 3 days before and nothing else had come in. They'd go through the, through the papers, through the books and say, there's something here in SE15, which meant nothing to me. What's SE15? Where is that? I don't know. And they would come out with places that I'd never heard of, like Rotherhithe and Woolwich and Croydon. I thought, Croydon? Is that in London? Well, no, is the answer to that. But I probably would have gone there if there was somewhere to live. But it had to be somewhere that I was, comfortable with, people I was comfortable with and who were comfortable with me too. And so there was an awful lot of sifting through the information, jotting it down, pen and paper, jotting it down while they spoke, and do you want to share with 3 lesbians and 4 dogs, or vice versa, in Maida Vale? Yeah, maybe, but not really top of my list. And sifting through the information, and then, of course, making contact with those people, and then going to see those addresses and meet the people, and I would say 8 or 9 times out of 10, come away thinking, you must be joking. No, I couldn't live there. Quite often, I would go somewhere and discover, it's a 1-bedroom flat, and you want me to sleep on the sofa bed. This is not home. Or it's a 1-bedroom flat, and you want me to share the bed with you. No, that's not what my understanding of what was on offer. So there was a lot of wasted time.
I'm Lisa Power. I'm a dyke who's been around for donkey's years. I was on Switchboard between 1979 and 1984. I loved the Switchboard accommodation service. It was a very useful, very incredible service, but it was also quite fraught at times because there were a lot of rules about what you could and couldn't take.
May 14th, 1975. Macintosh phoned to ask if he was still listed under Crashpads. He isn't and would like his name re-entered. Side note, he is banned on the crash list.
We had the accommodation service. We had a huge list at the front of the file of people who were banned from using it because some people would try and use it as a sex service. They'd say they had a room to let and then everyone who went round got grabbed. So anybody who rang up and made an accusation, that was it. There was no question of, do we hear 2 sides of this? They were automatically off the list.
Here's a record of somebody who is offering accommodation, and this person says they're offering accommodation for one male between the ages of 18 to 25. And this is a male of the age of 50 who is offering this in Chelsea, nice part of town. And what's on offer here? A bedroom, kitchen, bathroom. And everything is shared. There's a double bedroom, to share a double bedroom, plus kitchen and bathroom. The weekly rent is £10 a week, including food. This is getting more and more suspicious. Other details, 18 to 25, so there's a maximum. You can only be half his age. And it also says not effeminate. That makes me quite... That makes me quite angry. Now, this may be kosher and above board as the other one was. It may well be, but there are a lot of hints there that somebody wants... the word that's coming to my mind is exploitation, and that just feels just very dangerous, very unfair, very cruel, and that's really touched me.
This is a logbook entry from November the 17th, 1975, and Peter was the volunteer who took the call. He says that Richard, a Dutch Indonesian, aged 25, has been suddenly evicted from his Watford lodging. I've given likely places to him to check out for accommodation, but he has to be out by the 18th. I've told him should he find nothing, he should phone us back and we could think about referring him to one of our Crashpads for 2 or 3 days to help him look around. He's been looking, but he says his Indonesian background has caused people to reject him because he looks to be coloured.
I think that most of us in the LGBTQ plus communities know what it feels like to be judged in one way or another. To add into that, that judgment being a door slammed in your face from within your own community must be a truly incredibly difficult experience to go through.
Some people do just genuinely want to help, even if it's just for a respite or for a trip.
Yeah, definitely. There's an entry in the logbooks from the 14th of July, 1975, where the volunteers noted Fred, who is a counsellor in Aberdeen, calling in to say that he's known in the area and openly gay, but also very happy for anyone visiting to be given his name and address, and he will gladly provide accommodation and would be quite happy to help.
I like the way that the volunteer who took the call noted in the entry, I don't think he suggests great sexual expectations, more just a sometimes lonely gay who would like to get some companionship while helping other gay people.
Yeah, I guess sometimes you just needed to point that out. I think for me, just how much an attempt to find a home or a place to stay was so embedded with risk, and the number of entries that we found which talk about sharing a double bed or asking for a very specific type of person in the ad, it's just so glaringly obvious how much trust there was, which I think you still really need a lot today.
You know, obviously people are still looking for homes, and now today queer people use very different methods from phone in Switchboard, like they might have done in the 70s. There are Facebook groups, there is spare room,
Yeah.
you know, websites and apps and everything like that. So flat hunting is very different, but what's interesting is that people often do still want to live in a LGBTQ plus household or a queer household, and some of those Facebook groups are specifically for people with the same sexuality or the same gender identity, that kind of thing.
I just think these entries and these memories and commentary on the situation in the past just bring to light the ever-pressing need to support those left on the street or in their car or just those left without a home, which is why we went out and spoke to some people who work in that area today, such as the Albert Kennedy Trust, now known as AKT, and the Outside Project.
30 years ago this year, an ally set AKT up because many young people were facing homelessness after coming out to their parents. I'm Tim Sigsworth. I'm Chief Exec of the Albert Kennedy Trust, now known as AKT. I am passionate about LGBTQ plus rights. AKT provides safe homes and better futures for LGBTQ plus people who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. What's changed in terms of the problem is very little. The only thing I'm thankful for is there is access to safe homes, support, mentoring and better futures for LGBTQ young people coming out today. If I think about a young person like Josh came to us after being thrown out by his violent father when he came out to him. Josh had to live on the streets. He turned to survival sex and got into the chemsex scene and had acute mental health problems as a result of his experience. When he came to us, the first thing we needed to do was put him in safe housing and take him to a sexual health service. And as a result, Josh found out he was HIV positive at just 17 years of age. So what we did with Josh was we supported him into safe housing, we got him mentoring, we got him a counsellor to help him with his experiences around being diagnosed HIV positive. Suki was a young woman who came to us whose parents she'd come out in a devoutly religious family and they wanted to send her away to be married. And obviously, as a lesbian, she wanted to hold on to her identity and be in a relationship with another woman. So with her, we had to take out a forced marriage protection order to keep her safe. We had to put her in safe housing. And we helped her continue with her education because the thing for Suki was that she was determined to finish her education. And she's now actually studying to be a psychologist. So it's absolutely wonderful. Things turned out well for her, but unfortunately she still hasn't been reconciled with her family.
My folks are quite old-fashioned. Being Asian, I mean, they're quite religious. I'm Dave, I'm 45, and I like pizza. The reason why I left my parents' place is I guess we really didn't see eye to eye on things. And they come from a different background. I guess it's like the ultimate sin or cardinal sin or whatever you want to call it. I've lived in squats. I mean, like good friends who could, support me for a while. Obviously, it strains the relationship as well. I mean, especially if you've got a one-bedroom flat, You want to go to bed early, they want to watch a film, so it's kind of a bit clashing and so it's a bit hard as well. Like even like day centers or stuff like that. Sometimes people got dogs or people are drunk. It could just spark off quite easily. The one that I saw in Whitechapel, the guy had a dog and one guy said, "Oh, your dog bit me," and then plates were flying and stuff like that. So you didn't want to be in a situation where you got caught or stuff like that. So I found that quite scary and not a very good. I just probably walk away or run away the first thing if I see a fight. So yeah, so it's not a place that I want to be.
Hi, my name's Carla Ricola. I use she, they pronouns. I'm the founder, director of the Outside Project, which is an LGBTIQ+ homelessness, crisis, shelter and community centre that is now based in central London. From the little research that we do have, it's estimated that 25% of the homeless population within London are LGBTIQ+. That's not just youth homelessness, that's across the board. 1 in 4 people who are homeless being LGBTIQ+. Which is a huge overrepresentation in itself. And I think if you were to look at any other minority and demographic and show that as that same kind of representation, it would be classed as a crisis and there would be a big response. I'm not quite sure what's gone wrong in our campaigning world for our services, why there hasn't been a huge response from the system in trying to bring that figure down and trying to explore how that's happened. These reports and these statistics have been out for years.
So we've been hearing stories from people about their home life.
But we've got to move on to the next episode.
Yeah, we're moving on to nightlife, such an important part of life for gay men and lesbians in the 70s, and of course the LGBT plus community today.
Everyone likes a bit of a dance on a Friday night.
Calls to Switchboard are confidential, so to bring the logbooks to life, we've changed the callers' names.
The Logbooks is produced by Shivani Dave, Adam Smith and Tash Walker, in partnership with Switchboard, the LGBT plus helpline.
If you think other people would like the logbooks, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. These ratings and reviews really help others to discover the show. You can send us your feedback and stories to hello@thelogbooks.org.
Our music is by Tom Foskett Barnes and our artwork is by Natalie Doto.
Thanks to Steph Dickers and team at the Bishopsgate Institute,
The folks at Acast,
Gareth Mitchell at Imperial College London,
the staff and volunteers at Switchboard,
and all the contributors who shared their stories. 45 years on, Switchboard continues to take phone calls from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. If you're affected by any of the issues in this podcast or need to discuss anything to do with gender identity or sexuality, you can call Switchboard on 0300 330 0630. Email chris@switchboard.lgbt or instant message via switchboard.lgbt, where you can also donate money or time to help.